Hey guys, it's Vernie here, and today we're going to talk about some more hero talents that were just released. I think they released 8 new trees. The one that I'm primarily interested in is Herald of the Sun. They have already released a different Holy Paladin tree. It was Holy and Prot, that was Lightsmith, and if you watch that video, you'll know that I was not a big fan of that. I don't like the double downing of support spells on a class that I want to just heal on. I think AUG is already contentious enough. PI is already kind of a problem. So when you throw something like Lightsmith there, where you're dropping a holy armament on the ground and you want some guy to go pick it up in the middle of whatever the hell is going on during that boss fight, it sounds horrendous. And if damage can be squeezed out of it, people will expect healers to play that instead of the pure healing thing. Not a fan of that. AUG I can handle. I'm not a huge fan of the support slash healer role, but we'll see what Herald of the Sun can bring. And if this is kind of rambling, I'm sorry. I had to re-record this because I lost the first set of footage. So we're going to go over this again, and hopefully my software will save it properly. So let's go ahead and get started. So Herald of the Sun is for Holy and Ret. They also dropped Templar, which is Ret and Prot, and we'll go into that later. And we'll release the next few over the next few weeks. But first, Sunspot. Holy. Holy Prism causes your next 2 holy power spending abilities to create a sunspot on your target, dealing radiant damage or healing over 8 seconds. In Retribution, Wake of Ashes causes your next 2 holy power spending abilities to create a sunspot on your target, dealing radiant damage or healing over 8 seconds. For both specs, 10% of Sunspot's damage and healing radiates to nearby allies or enemies, reduced beyond 5 targets. So, something I noticed right off the bat for Holy, they don't mention Lightshammer. So I don't know if going forward they're going to try to make Holy Prism that primary spot because it is a choice node for Holy, is either Holy Prism or Light's Hammer. I'm not a huge fan of Light's Hammer. Holy Prism is okay. I'm not going to say it's super impactful, but it does its job, especially when you're moving. It does a little bit of burst healing to 4 or 5 people. So you're creating a sunspot every 30 seconds because Holy Prism and Wake of Ashes have 30-second cooldown abilities, and that on friendlies puts a hot for 8 seconds. 10% of damage and healing radiates to nearby allies or enemies. So I would hope this bottom section is kind of tuned towards whatever that spec is geared towards. For instance, if it's holy, then it should prioritize healing people, and if it's red, it should prioritize damaging enemies. Hopefully, that kind of safeguard is built in. Otherwise, this would be kind of a weird talent, but okay. So, I mean, this is kind of like the current set bonus that Holy Paladins have now, where if you Holy Shock a target, it has a chance to leave reverberations, which is a small hot over like 8 seconds. It amounts to like a decent percentage of our healing over raid fights. It's fine. Nothing crazy, but it's solid. Let's go ahead and go down the left side of the tree first. So, our first choice node is Morningstar. Every 5 seconds, your next sunspot's damage or healing is increased by 5%, stacking up to 10 times, and Morningstar stacks twice as fast while out of combat. So if you let it fully stack, it gets to, 50% increased damage or healing, and it stacks twice as fast while out of combat. I mean, the ending part is nice for dungeons for sure. Running between packs, you'll be getting more stacks. Sure, why not? Cool. And the other choice is Gleaming Rays. While a sunspot is active, your holy power spenders deal 10% increased additional damage or healing. That seems really solid for Ret, first off, because their spenders are a big portion of their single target damage. And obviously, they're good for AoE. Divine Storm is crazy in AoE. But for Holy, it's a welcome buff, I will say that. 10% additional healing. The problem right now is that Holy Power spenders are garbage. You actually don't care about your holy power at all. You overcap it. You waste hundreds over the course of a fight because it is that unimpactful. You would rather just flash of light things than use a spender. The only time you use spenders is when you have your Dawn buff, when you have like multiple stacks of Dawn buff. So I'll take it. Maybe there's some more synergy later on in the tree that improves this, that makes you more likely to cast spenders. But as of right now, spenders are, I don't know, they're kind of turds. They're not great. So the next node is another choice. Illumine. Sunspots reduce the movement speed of enemies by 50% and increase the movement speed of allies by 20%. I mean, sure, it's a node. Giving people movement speed is kind of nice as a healer, and it's not 20% is not crazy, but it's not nothing. Maybe get you out of a mechanic. And then the choice is with Will of the Dawn, movement speed increased by 5% while above 80% health. When your health is brought below 35%, your movement speed is increased by 40% for 5 seconds. Oh, okay. That's nice. I like that. I like that a lot. So you get low, you get something damages you, and you get like a little mini sprint for 5 seconds. That seems pretty sweet. Paladins are kind of known as wheelchairs to a degree. I mean, maybe not quite as much as DKs because they have horse, but once Divine Steed is down, this is like a nice little way to give you a free speed buff every minute if you dip below 35. So, kind of cool. I think I would probably lean towards taking Will of the Dawn, but maybe that's me being selfish. Okay, moving on. Aurora, Holy. After you cast Holy Prism, gain Divine Purpose. Retribution, after you cast Wake of Ashes, gain Divine Purpose. So, Divine Purpose just gives you a free Holy Power spender. It's, again, fine. For Ret, it seems really solid. Like, getting another big Divine Storm seems pretty cool every 30 seconds. And Divine Purpose can proc off of Divine Purpose. So, in theory, you could get multiple free Holy Power spenders off of this. But for Holy, again, like, unless there's more talents here that kind of change it, the Holy Power spenders are kind of bad. Free is free, but you can't be super excited about it. All right, and the capstone. Sun's Avatar. During Avenging Wrath, you become linked to your sunspots, causing radiant damage to enemies or healing to allies that pass through the beams, reduced beyond 5 targets. Activating Avenging Wrath applies 4 sunspots onto nearby allies or enemies, and increases sunspots' damage and healing by 20%. So is it like a tether, like a laser? And then again, we have to ask, like, is it going to prioritize healing for Holy and damage for Ret? Is there a buffer limit? Like, if an ally walks through the beam and it gets healed, can you just strafe through it multiple times and just keep getting healed? Or is it like you can only get healed once every X seconds? Kind of interesting. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of questions on the functionality of this, but could be cool. In the second part, activating Avenging Wrath applies 4 sunspots onto nearby allies or enemies. Uh, hmm. What's nearby mean? 15 yards? 20 yards? Are paladins expected to play in melee? Because right now, holy paladins you don't really have to play in melee. You're playing a full caster build right now. You don't cast Crusader Strike. You really don't cast Judgment. I guess you shield with the righteous in dungeons sometimes, but in raid, it seems kind of awkward. Maybe they're trying to force you to get back into melee so you can spread these into melee. But remains to be seen. No numbers on that yet. Okay. Going down the middle of the tree, Eternal Flame replaces Word of Glory, heals an ally immediately and over an additional 20 seconds. Healing increased by 25% when cast on self. Okay, so this is a talent that was around, I believe, in Cataclysm and Mist of Pandaria. It was fine. It's a free hot with Word of Glory. Again, Word of Glory is already not really worth casting, but with a free hot, sure. Increased by 25% on yourself. That's a nice little thing to keep you up. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine it being a major node, but a free hot is a free hot. It's kind of weird because you've already got Glimmer, and then you've got Eternal Flame hot, and then you have Sunspot leaving a hot. I don't know. It's just like fucking blanket them. We're now like a mini Resto Druid. Anyway, choice node. Eternal Sun. Sunspot's duration is increased by 2 seconds, and Eternal Flame's duration is increased by 3 seconds. So Eternal Flame is 23 seconds and Sunspot is 10. I mean, fine. Lingering Radiance. Sunspots leave an Eternal Flame for 12 seconds on allies or a Greater Judgment on enemies when they expire or are extended. I mean, this one's kind of okay. I don't mind it. Leaving a free hot when you sunspot people. Again, it's kind of like the current Holy Paladin set bonus. Like leave a small hot after you've healed someone. Chances are they will need healing at some point. Maybe it won't be overheal. Greater Judgment. I mean, that seems okay. Greater Judgment increases the damage of your spenders for ret against those targets. So sure. Solar Grace. Your haste is increased by 4% for 12 seconds each time you apply a sunspot. Multiple stacks may overlap. So, when you pop wings, you apply 4 sunspots. Does that mean you get 16% haste? So you get like half of a lust for 12 seconds? Man, if that's how it works, that seems pretty good. If it only gives you the haste one time instead of 4 times, that would be extremely lame. But it could be cool. Multiple stacks may overlap. So I guess it's like kind of like Iron Fur, where you could apply multiple stacks, but they expire at their own pace. Every 12 seconds, one will go away. It's not like, oh, you have 12-second window and then they're all gone. They'll just go away after 12 seconds. So that's kind of nice. This could be pretty interesting. And finally, the right side of the tree. Luminosity, Holy, critical strike, chance of Holy Shock, and Light of Dawn increased by 10%. Oh, yeah. That's the one. This is something that I have complained about personally multiple times on my stream during Mythic Prog. It is really, really fucking aggravating to cast 5 or 6 Holy Shocks and not get a single crit. Because right now our healing is based off of Holy Shock critting, we get Infusion of Light, and then we dump a big and super mana efficient Flash of Light onto one target, which then cleaves to our beacons. And without a crit, it does almost no healing, and it costs a fuck ton of mana. So this seems really nice for Holy Shock. And Light of Dawn, great. Light of Dawn needs a lot of help. Right now it's not really worth casting. Just because cleaving with Word of Glory and Beacon is better, but Light of Dawn getting a crit buff might be worth it. And for Ret, crit strike chance of Hammer of Wrath and Divine Storm increased by 10%. Again, it's boring, but effective. I mean, Divine Storm is a huge part of their AoE. Hammer of Wrath is a decent part of their single target. More crit is great. Sunseer. For Holy, Holy Shock and Light of Dawn critical strikes cause the target to burn for an additional radiant damage over 4 seconds or be healed for over 4 seconds. So is this like a third hot? You have Glimmer, you have Sunspot, you have Eternal Flame, and then you have Sunseer. Huh. I mean, more passive blanketing is probably okay in Raid. It's kind of boring, but it seems effective. I would rather have boring effective healing than place holy armament onto the ground that dude has to walk over to get a buff. And then for Ret, Hammer of Wrath and Divine Storm critical strikes cause the target to burn for additional radiant damage. So, yeah, great. Seems fine. Again, these seem very cut and dry for Ret. Boring, but effective. Second Sunrise. Holy, Holy Shock and Light of Dawn have a 15% chance to cast again at 30% effectiveness. And Retribution, Hammer of Wrath and Divine Storm have a 15% chance to cast again at 30% effectiveness. I mean, this seems great. Being able to get free procs of something is great. Multiple Holy Shocks means you are generating multiple Holy Powers. That's awesome. And it seems like with some of these buffs, Light of Dawn is going to be very worth casting. It seems like they're going to want you in melee, dropping sunspots onto the melee, and then just dumping big Light of Dawns. So it seems pretty cool. Okay, so overall, I have some questions on the functionality of the tree, but it's not. It's definitely not Lightsmith. When I looked at Lightsmith, there was a lot of trepidation there in whether these talents would be useful and how the damage would be tuned. And like, oh, is your raid leader going to ask you to go support so you can do more damage and dump it on the PI/AUG target? And like, no, I don't want to do that. If I'm playing a healer, I want to heal the raid. In my opinion, Paladin is like the working man's healer. It is like one of the lowest overheal when played correctly. You get beacon on your squishy targets like the Hunter's Boomkins, and you just keep them up. You spread your Holy Shocks every now and then you just keep healing. You are a decently effective spot healer. The only complaints I really have about this tree is it doesn't seem like it does anything to address the mana cost of builders. So like they're trying to improve spenders here. You've got 10% increased damage and healing. You've got increased crit on Light of Dawn. You have a hot Light of Dawn. You have a chance to cast it multiple times. You've got a hot for Word of Glory. And those are great. But like to get there, you have to use builders. You have to build combo points. And if they want us to press Crusader Strike or Judgment, they need to lower the mana cost. The mana cost is awful right now. You do basically no damage. It gives you some holy power, but that holy power is not very useful because the builders are garbage. So there needs to be probably buffs on the builders and then some mana reduction. Sorry, I messed that up. There should be healing buffs on the spenders and then mana reduction on the builders. Um, Is there anything else I really have a complaint? As a holy paladin, like again, it seems solid. It seems like a pretty nice way to like blanket the raid. You're going to be doing your normal glimmer spread, so you'll be spreading hots onto people. Very small hots, but I'm sure they'll be effective. And depending if these things are cleaved with beacon, seems like it could be very, very strong. And as a person who wants to heal when I play a healer, I would definitely pick Herald of the Sun over Lightsmith. For Ret, I mean, it seems I can't really comment a lot because I'm not a Ret main. I've played Ret a good bit in dungeons, but it seems decent. I'd be curious what's in the Templar tree. Might have to give that a look later this week. But overall, seems pretty good. Definitely taking this one over Lightsmith. And God, this is heaps better than Oracle. So Blizzard, stop doubling down on buff specs. Make specs that are fun. You don't need to buff other people. Okay? It's already complex enough. Anyway, rant over. So thanks everyone for listening. We'll be posting a couple more of these videos next week, so feel free to check them out, and we will see you next time. Peace.